One of the most important roles you can have inside of your organization is what we call an SDR, a sales development rep, a setter, someone that basically books calls in your business. And so in this video, we're going to break down what an SDR is, why SDRs are important, and then how to maximize them inside of your organization so that you can extract more revenue from your current funnels, from your current sales process, and really take your business to that next level. So what is an SDR? All an SDR is essentially a sales rep that books appointments for a closer. That's it. Keep it really, really simple. And so these are the people that you will typically get calls from on your phone. They're like, hey, this is so-and-so, the XYZ. And then you'll go into a whole conversation and then they'll end up booking a call to go speak to another member of the team. SDRs in the B2B world are people that will prospect lists of clients. For example, bigger Fortune 500 companies, they'll be the ones that go and prospect and then cold call some of these organizations to then book calls with, let's say, account executives. We're not going to get into the roles here because I think the roles are a bunch of fugazi to make people feel good. But at the end of the day, all an SDR does is a sales rep that books meetings onto a closer's calendar. We like to view sales reps as the insurance policy for the business. So why are they important? Well, let's take a webinar funnel, for example. You got an ad, you got the webinar, and you've got the sales call. Now, what can happen in this journey is, let's say somebody clicks the ad, they're good to go, they hop on the webinar, and then they never actually end up booking the call to go speak to a salesperson. What a setter does is a setter goes, okay, these are all the people that showed up to the webinar, let me call them and book them onto a sales call. And so we like to view them as essentially an insurance policy, because what they're able to do is take wherever you failed to convert them on the webinar and turn them into a sales call. We see on average between a 10 to 30, sometimes 40% increase in a funnel's revenue just by adding setters and SDRs. And when you're first launching paid campaigns, having a team of SDRs in place or having an SDR in place is arguably one of the most important roles to have, because it allows you to really squeeze your funnel for everything it's got. Like if you're still closing, we recommend bringing a setter on immediately to just put more calls on your calendar. That way you don't have to spend as much and you don't have to be worried about the risk as much, because they're able to see. Now, why else are setters important? Well, not only are setters there to book calendars and help fill up salespeople's calendars, but they also can serve two more purposes. Number one, qualifying leads. This one is very straightforward. Let's say they're about to speak to a salesperson. Sometimes you'll have your setters do what are called triaging, which is essentially speaking to the individual that just booked to make sure that they're actually qualified to speak to the next person. The next thing that a setter or SDR can do is they can educate leads. And this is great to help move people along in the sales process. For example, sometimes you'll have somebody book a call and then they hop on a call with the closer and they're like, oh, I don't know anything. Like, I don't even remember booking this call. What a setter can do is to fill that space and time. They can go, cool, you're at this point, you're at that point. Check out this resource that's tailored to where you're at. Make sure you consume this to tailor where you're at. And what you end up doing is you increase the individual's interest level and education level prior to the sales call so that the closer no longer has to do as much education. Now, if your closers are, bitching and moaning about shitty leads because they're too early in the sales process, all that is lazy closers. You want guys that are willing to do and go that extra level to educate prospects on sales calls. But again, your setters are there to act as the insurance policy and ideally educate them even more prior to the sales call happening. The number three thing that setters can do that we love, like it is by far my favorite component of a setter as a marketer personally, is they can do market research. So let's go back to this webinar example. If I go add to webinar to sales call and nobody books a sales call, what the setter can do on these calls here, as he tries to book them or she tries to book them back onto a closer's calendar, is they can figure out, well, why didn't they book on the webinar? What was their reason for showing up on the webinar? What were their intents? Why do they maybe still not want to book with a closer? And what they can do, and this benefits the marketer more than everybody else, is figure out, hey, the guys you're getting through, they're good to go or they're not good to go. Let's take another example. If we look at a challenge funnel, this is a 3-day event. Typically, it's very, very hard as you're building up to the event to predict the quality of lead that's coming through. And these are sometimes 90 days of running ads up to an event that's 3 days where you're hoping to get a massive chunk of change off the end of it. If I don't have any clarity on who's coming through the funnel in those first 3 days, that's a huge problem as an advertiser, because I can risk hundreds of thousands of dollars on paid advertising just for it to flop horribly when the event actually comes. Instead, what you can do is similar to the market research piece. You can plug in your setters to do research before the challenge so that as a marketer, you can say, cool, we've got 20 leads that came in today. 5 of them are qualified, 15 aren't. Need to pivot the ads. Okay, we had another 20 come in today. Now we're 10 qualified, 10 not. Let's try pivoting the ads a little bit. And you can use the setters as a feedback loop to improve quality before the event even happens. And so that's the third component that I love about a setter, is the ability to do market research. And what you'll also notice is some businesses have massive setting teams. Some businesses have no setting teams. A lot of this is determined by your willingness to manage people. But if your goal in operating any organization is to maximize the revenue and cash collected of the business, having a setting team is a no fucking brainer. And so this brings me to the last point of how do you actually maximize setters? And again, we run sales teams. I personally don't claim to be the best sales manager in the world, but I do have things that have helped us along the way to help maximize setting teams. Because the number one problem we see across the board with setters is super high turnover. And this is a nightmare where you'll hire somebody and they're immediately like, oh, They're immediately like, oh, I want to become a closer. Oh, I want to, this job sucks. Or if they're fully remote, you go look at their activity on their dashboards and it's like, you're not doing anything at all. Like, why are we paying you? And so the number one thing you can do to decrease turnover, and then we'll go into the maximizing efficiency and effectiveness. The number one thing that you can do is pay well. If you give a setter a really solid base and a commission that makes a ton of sense, they won't mind staying there. Like, I'll pay a setter 10 grand a month if they produce really, really well. The structure of that, I don't care if it's a 3K base and an X commission. I don't care if it's 5K base and an X commission. But the number one thing you can do is pay really, really well. The number two thing you can do is have a really strong culture. So this is something I found very interesting as I went on a trip with a couple of buddies from college the other day. And one of them is actually a setter inside of a Fortune 100, 200, somewhere in like the Fortune 500 area, like massive company. And I asked him, I'm like, why don't you guys have setters or SDRs turn over all the time? Like, why don't you guys lose these roles? It's a plague in our industry, at least on the information side, where you bring on an SDR and they leave immediately, or they're ready to make the next big thing. You know, they want to start a business, they want to do this, they want to do that. And so you experience super, super high turnover. All he said was, well, yeah, dude, obviously we're a Fortune 100 company. We have a direct impact on your reputation as a future employee. And so I want to make sure I leave a good impression. The other thing is just, again, the culture. This is a culture of people that want to stay. It's a culture of people that want to stick around. He said half of that sales floor is friends. When you work with friends, your performance increases drastically. And so it's harder in this remote space, but your ability to maintain a really strong culture that keeps people is the second thing you do to decrease retention or decrease turnover and maximize the output. Now, the biggest thing that you can do in order to maximize a setter's output is a couple of things. Number one, make sure they're dialing based on activity of your ICP. So for example, if I'm selling moms, do I want to be calling moms when they are picking up their kids from school? Fuck no, absolutely not. I want to be calling moms right before, in the morning after they drop their kids off. They're back at home, they're relaxed. I don't want to be doing it during their Pilates class. I don't want to be doing it when they're picking their kids up. After dinner, if I'm selling to dads, I want to call them after their 9 to 5, maybe before. It's why door knockers will knock till 8 p.m. because you're getting people after work. You know, if I sell blue collar, I can get away with calling at like 3 p.m. And so what you want to do is begin to track the activity of your ICP. So when the best pickup rates are, what time of day, that's when you want your setters to prioritize dialing. And then their admin tasks and stuff, you can have them swap and do the admin during the periods when things are dead. So that's the first thing, is to make sure your setters are dialing based on the activity of the ICP. The number two thing you can do is provide what we call a trust asset master log. This is coming directly from Jeremy Haynes. I may have butchered what he calls it, but I learned this from him, where it's just a document with all of the resources that you can give to your prospects prior to the sales call to get them to be more nurtured, be more educated. Back to the earlier point in the video. This can be things like YouTube. This can be things like PDFs, mini courses, news articles. So it doesn't even have to be you. You can send them other news articles, confirmation pages. By giving your setters this, it allows them to distribute content to prospects according to where they're at. So when they hear XYZ thing, white mom, age of 60, here's a testimonial, white mom, age of 60. That's all I'm doing. And so that's the second thing, is giving them a trust asset master log. The number three thing that you can do that's arguably the most important is really dialed in ramping and training. So the number one problem we see with sales teams across the board is when you bring in a new rep, your ROAS across the account will dip. That it's unavoidable. It's going to happen. It has nothing to do with your sales rep. It has to do with the fact that they don't know shit about your product yet. And so the number one thing you can do is really dial in your ramping and training process, not only from a 0 to 1, but a 1 to growth and a 1 to maintain. What Alex Hormozy says all the time, which I find very, very interesting and rings true, is oftentimes it's just doing the same things over and over and over and over and over. It has nothing to do with new shit. What we've seen across the board with sales teams is you'll tell them, hey, make sure you're doing this thing before the calls. Make sure you're submitting your forms. Make sure you're doing this. And the second that you stop reminding them to do these things, they will stop. And then you'll ask them, you go, why didn't you submit your forms? Oh, I forgot. Whereas before they were doing it every single day. Even if it affects their commission, they'll still forget. And so it's making sure that you're dialing and you're ramping in your setters effectively. The last thing I'll say in this video, and then if you want to learn more about what this could look like for your business, there's a link below. You can book call to speak to myself or a member of the team about really dialing in and ramping your setting team, is really good sales training. Most setters are not well trained at all. They have horrible openers on the calls. They don't know what to do with the handoffs. They don't understand at what point to stop the handoff. So there's a very specific point where if you get a setter or if you get a prospect past a certain point in the sales process on the setting call, and then you hand it to a closer, the closer's going to have a hard time closing them. And so knowing where the handoff point is, knowing how to open the calls, tone you should use, the word tracks, the mini objection handlers you need to use to get them to book the call, how to properly qualify, all of that comes down to really, really dialed in sales training. Like I said, if you want to learn more about what that could look like, there's a link below. We can look at your whole process from start to finish, see where you're probably losing book calls, but having a really, really dialed in sales training. And the pro tip with this is actually looking at call recordings for quality. So not just looking at them to see how well they did, but are they just totally missing the mark on what a qualified lead is based on what the lead's telling us? And so that's really it with setters. I mean, it's not a super complicated role. It is tough to manage. I will say that it's one of the harder roles to manage, to minimize turnover and all those things. Like I said, if you have a really, really dialed in setters team, it's like having an insurance policy on your business. You can launch campaigns and be less worried about not being profitable on day one. You can scale campaigns a lot more aggressively because you know that you have that fallback, and allows you to get a more clear look as a whole into the entire business so that your closers can focus on closing. You can focusing on marketing and sales management, talent and your setters can get you all the information you need on the front line. So if you like content like this, if you like the video, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you want to see more of below, like the video, and I will see you in the next one.